Looking back on all that used to be, I can see you believed in me. You laid everything in front of me and showed me how to live. Yes, we've all gone through some ups and downs, but I'm proud to say that I have found something deep within my heart and soul that keeps me on the ground. I owe it all to you, so I'm thanking you today, 'cause without God and life behind me, who would lead the way? Ooh, yeah, 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 yeah. I thank God for having someone like you by my side. If there's anything I could ever do, if there's anything, baby, I would never, so I thank God. I thank God, and I thank God. Take my hand and together you and I, we can make it. Take my hand, love so strong and true, there's no mistaking. Together time to take the whole lot more than love for a family to make it. A family so strong, that God has asked for life to go on. For having someone like you by my side. If there's anything I could ever do, if there's anything, baby, I would never think, never, never, looking back on all that used to be, I can see you believed in me. You laid everything in front of me and showed me how to live.
Frame 3 billion people. How people are either barely surviving in abject poverty. There we go. We got about. Oh, hi. Sorry, we're running a little bit late. Excuse me a second. Hey, Bob. Fast. Welcome to Culture and Culture. You know, shows designs that want to be looked at society, because perhaps you're like me, and as you stumble around this experiment we call global society, you can't help but feel an increasing sense of unease, perhaps even frustration, with respect to how we, the human family, have chosen to organize ourselves on this little planet. The late astronomer and well-known advocate of science, Carlson, in the PBS series Cosmos, once invited the question: if we were visited by a superior species from another part of the galaxy and were forced to explain to them our stewardship of our planet, not to mention the state of human affairs today, would we be proud of what we described? How would we frame our explanation of how almost half of the world, over 3 billion people, are either barely surviving in abject poverty and sickness, or are simply dying off unnecessarily at a rate of about one person every couple of seconds, all occurring in the wake of an advanced technological reality where we could easily feed, clothe, and house every family on Earth in a respectable standard of living? How would we frame the global warfare, 230 million killed by their fellow man in the past 100 years alone? Based on what? Meaningless territoriality, resources, dogmatic, obsolete ideologies? Again, this all occurring in the shadows of a looming scientific recognition that we are indeed simply one family sharing one household by the exact same laws of nature and hence the same unifying operational ideology. How about our economic system, the bedrock of what defines our society, not to mention our dominant motivations? How would we explain the reality that rather than organizing ourselves efficiently as a single system to properly manage this household we share, we childishly divide and compete and exploit each other through an archaic, completely environmentally decoupled game? A game, by the way, which not only appears to perpetuate a vast spectrum of social atrocities, but now seems to be further destabilizing society, decreasing our public health. Sorry to say, as an individual, I really don't care what you believe, nor do I particularly respect it. Why? Because I don't really respect what I believe either. There's no evidence to show that any of the traditional values, establishments, or social structures, common practices we have today will be relevant tomorrow. The only thing that appears to stand the test of time is this very notion of change, the ever-evolving understanding of ourselves and the world we inhabit. Perhaps some might think that that's actually the definition of human. About that. Less about what we know, more about how vulnerable we are. So when you look out your window, ask yourself, do you see intelligence or do you see dogma? Do you see a culture listening and working to realign itself with the ever-emerging natural orders as they unfold? Or do you see desperately stubborn efforts by many, particularly those in positions of power, trying to keep everything the same to the detriment of the entire human experiment? You know, like you, I might be only one member of this family that is now 7 billion strong. And like most families, yeah, sometimes it's hard for us to agree. But sometimes things get so bad, we need serious intervention. The following series is that intervention in the hope to salvage what is clearly a culture in decline. It's an election year in the United States, and some may say it's an election year for the whole world. Still, the dominant empire, the United States political system, spent roughly $20 billion in the zone. And the amount of distributed how to feed a person in America program, you'll find that money will be better well spent. The 2012 presidential election is the expensive and ostensibly important elections of all time. Given the debt crisis, the unemployment crisis, mass destabilization, however, I'm particularly interested in the left or the right, or just in any candidate interested in global democracy in the tradition as it exists and how it is blindly accepted by the vast majority of people on this planet as being the only option to satisfy their judgment in its optimum state. That's what interests me. So rather than debate who should be the president, we'll step back and some broader. Made by those elected. It's bad enough that those voted in have literally no legal responsibility. Banking system, a system which actually put out $2 trillion.
14 vacation home. Your wife have an art
While the public was left to die with overflowing private debt, job loss, economy. So if we're going to insist with a silly little name called the growth economy, where the movement of money defines everything, it might be a good idea to do the math regarding what might actually help this economic system operate at some passable level.
Therefore, if you raise taxes on the so-called rich, you're really raising taxes on the job. All this private sector growth, you got to recognize that the best way to create that growth is to leave capital in the treasuries of the job creators.
If that money spent on bank bailout was spent to, say, relieve private household debt instead, while letting Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and all of the other technically meaningless, non-producing financial institutions experience the failure and bankruptcy they deserved, simultaneously nationalizing the entire U.S. banking system as a whole, the U.S. economy might have had a chance. Why? Because banks don't actually contribute anything. People with jobs do. To growth in this type of system, you need jobs. You want jobs, you need demand, and demand to have free money to spend. So by helping the public debt burden, you would plant the true seeds of economic growth. Well, of course, as obvious as that may seem, many forget one thing. The bailout had nothing to do with helping the U.S. economy, nor does it or will it work to help any hurting sovereign economy in the world. Why? Because we live in a plutocracy, not a democracy, and the only true power is actually behind the curtain, not in front. The financial and business powers only own and control this country. They own and control the whole planet. And no, it's not a conspiracy. It's a value system disorder. As long as a dollar sign is associated with every blade of grass, every plot of land, every fleeting thought or invention, not to mention judging the merit of individuals for their right to life through labor, we should expect nothing less. Since the inception of the state itself, with the underlying power of money as the ultimate driver of human decisions and hence persuasion, the true power has always been financial. And those little people you elect into office every couple of years, they have owners too. And don't you forget it. Democracy, is that something you believe in? Does it exist today in America?
Didn't believe in. Does it exist like forest fires or God or the devil?
What is your opinion of the American democratic system?
Deeply, deeply broken.
Democracy goes, of course, to the government. Is it in practice in 12 in this country? Not close. It's a corporatocracy.
So all of this considered, let's now think a little more accurately about this whole democracy deal. The tradition of our democracy has to do with representatives elected to apparently do our thinking for us. A critical question becomes, where do these people come from? Why are they the ones on your TV and not others? Did you decide that these people are the best choices to compete for such critical leadership? Or, pronounced the potential create repetition of exposure? the demos, which means entes, which means rule. And so the people of a given society express their opinions through votes, and policy is created by the majority's interest. It appears the process was formalized in ancient Greece and has been adapted since. However, it didn't take long for a bit of cynicism to emerge with itself. The fact that the entire basis of the idea assumes that the voting public actually educated enough to know what they're doing. Franklin Roosevelt once acutely stated, "Democracy cannot succeed unless those who express their choice are prepared to choose wisely. The real safeguard of democracy, therefore, is education." Winston Churchill, on the other hand, was a little less forgiving, stating, "The best argument in a 5-minute conversation with the average voter." And of course, the infamous Mark Twain jumped to the inevitable punchline, stating, "If voting made any difference, they wouldn't let us do it." I would like you to ask yourself, if we were in the ruling class, the investment class, to paraphrase Thorstein Veblen, and we want to preserve our interests against any interference, what would we do? Well, first, we need to take the broadest possible view we can. We need to make sure the voting public is as uninformed as possible regarding relevant issues that might contradict our establishment's practices. Coupled with that, we also need to eliminate as much independent, logical, causal, scientific thought as possible. So let's support an extremely underfunded, outdated, and deprived public education job one day. Teach well educated and critical thought. They know how to think about things and about. What's your opinion on education and hence its effect on the democratic process?
That we have more problems in America. One, dealing with the dumbing down of America.
Do you feel that this sort of poor educational system actually benefits the establishment?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They're easily uninformed. They can't fight back.
However, to further reinforce this, we need to push and reward belief systems that support systems and values that are stubborn, irrational, and promote closed thinking. Religion becomes super helpful in this circumstance.
Is it possible that religion is being politicized and that candidates are using it as a tool?
I believe that God created the universe.
And we're enjoined by Scripture and the Lord Jesus to oppose it with all our might.
That God is our source.
The God who loves us, the God who gave us life, who gave us our being.
And so to every sailor, soldier, airman, and
to be obedient and follow blindly, ripe to extend that obedience to others who claim authority. Check. Next, critical the dish. Something said, think in herds. It will in herds. Cover just apply to say a soccer riot. Such mob precision can be through. Talk about mass insanity. This event created an immediate crowd madness with fear and revenge. And it didn't take long for the US government and other governments, in fact, to harness that madness and funnel support for draconian legislation and illegal invasions. Logical tendency is not only very useful for implanting and guiding issues of importance, it is also critical in setting rigid limits of debate, creating the tendency for those who begin to question beyond those limits to be ostracized and rejected by the herd itself. You know, moral distribution of income in society.
All the growth that has occurred in our country over the more to
about the empowerment. Than house everybody on earth with technology, utopian jackasses. A deep fear of social and associate that truly taboo. So groundwork and motion with pesky problems. Over a political power that some are unable to get near the major outlet digestion. If they do, the practice treat them like freaks.
Heroin is, you know what? If we legalized heroin tomorrow, everybody's going to use heroin. How many people here would use heroin if it was legal?
How do we do that? Money. And our corporate constituency has plenty. Just to make sure the use of this money